Hello and welcome to the Apostolic Teachings Podcast. These episodes are usually taking place on a Thursday Bible study night led by Bishop Weatherly, or on a Tuesday Bible study night for the youth led by Minister Weatherly. We encourage you to join us and dive deeper into the meaning of the apostolic doctrine. God bless.
But alright, we're going to start. I think, Sarah, you said that you had a question?
So the question is, can a female be a preacher or minister or something like that?
Can a female be a preacher or minister?
That's a very good question.
It is a good question. That is a really good question. Do you have your phone on you?
I don't think there's any preacher that is like a girl.
Nope. So, it all depends on who you ask. Well, no, that's not true. If you ask that question, it depends who you ask what your answer will be, okay? The Bible, I think, has made a clear... I'm going to use your phone to look up stuff since we're using mine to record. But I think the Bible has a pretty clear answer to this. And it might be a few minutes. I might have to take just a few minutes to look up some stuff, but I should be good. I should be able to find something pretty easy. So I would say that the answer is yes. Yes, a female can be a minister or a preacher, or a pastor. Hold on just one second. And you guys are free to talk, because I don't want it to just be dead silence in here.
Can there be two preachers?
Can there be two preachers?
Yeah, like transition.
Transition. So the Bible does talk about that as well. I'll have to find the verse. But there should only be one pastor. I'll say that. But there can be preachers under him that transition in and out and preach for different services. And there's a verse that I'll find after we do this. That's another good question.
So is it kind of like a school where like there can only be like one principal, but there can be teachers under the principal?
Yeah, I would say that's a good example.
Mm-hmm.
Well, like for instance, I'm a minister, right? I'm a preacher, and I'm under bishop, but that does not make me the pastor. You know what I'm saying?
Still right.
He's with Sister Weatherly. They're having their anniversary, marriage anniversary dinner. So they're
How
going
come I
out.
didn't know about that? Dad's anniversary.
March 12th. March 12th.
You guys know when your parents got married?
No,
Yes.
I remember. Because that's like more important.
I don't even know my parents' birthdays.
I remember my brother's birthday, I think.
Hers is
October 6th, right? Okay. Anyways.
I want to guess.
So there's two instances that come to the top of my head when talking about women preachers and pastors, okay? The first one is when it mentions, I want to say it's either in Luke or John, and we'll go to the scripture again, we'll go to it, because I want to have actual Bible for it. And this is one of those situations where it's like, I know it's in there, but I haven't...
You just don't know it.
Right, it's not like, I go to it all the time, because really, to me, it's just kind of common knowledge that women can be preachers or pastors. I would say typically they're not usually called, but here it says, in the closing chapter of his first letter to Romans 1, Paul mentions no less than 10 women, Phoebe heads the list. I don't know how to say that word or that name. Phinope. Let's just go. We'll go to Romans real quick. We'll go to Romans. We'll read what they're talking about there.
It's Phoebe.
Phoebe.
It's Phoebe.
It's Phoebe. The answer is it's Phoebe.
Phoebe?
He couldn't
That's
see.
Phoebe.
He said Phinobe.
I-
Phinobe.
I-
It's Phoebe.
I've never seen-
There's not even an N in that name.
That is great, Sarah. I've never read Phinobe before. I've never read
It's
Phoebe
Phoebe.
before. I know.
You've never read Phoebe. Have you watched any episode of Friends? Exactly.
I didn't know people like that shit.
Yeah. Phoebe.
So, yeah, let's go to Romans 1. And then I'm trying to find out where it's talking about here. Because again, I want to make sure that I'm not just reading something that's, a lie. So, while we're doing this, does someone else have a phone? Or is it just Sarah? Okay.
They don't.
Because I'm not finding this here.
What was it?
Romans 16, it's citing Romans 16, verse 1 and 2. So we'll go to it. We'll look what it says. I commend, C-O-M-M-E-N-E-D. Commend? Yeah, okay. I commend unto you Phoebe, our sister, which is a servant of the church, which is at Centra, that you receive her in the Lord as becometh saints, and that you assist her in whatsoever business she hath need of you. For she has been a accuser of many, and myself also. And then it goes under greetings, Priscilla and Aquila, my helpers in Christ Jesus, who have for my life laid down their own necks, unto whom I only gave thanks, but also into the church of the Gentiles. So here he's saluting these women in the Lord, and I think it's important that you take note that he's saying to these people to look and give them what they need, okay? Right? So give yourself, help them out. That's the first thing. So he's not explicitly saying that this person right here is a leader, but he is speaking in a fashion that could be perceived that way. So there's that right there. Now, being a minister or preacher or pastor is different than being, for instance, a bishop. Okay, we know in Timothy, I believe it's in Timothy, where Paul says that a bishop needs to be a married man, and he goes through the different requirements of that, okay? And now, so in today, we have people that are superintendents, which holds a very similar, if not, I think it could be depends on which organization or fellowship you're talking about. But a lot of times it's about the same thing as a bishop, just a different name and different title, right? But there's also has been woman priests as well in the Bible. So I'm going to look that up real quick. And I think that it's important to note that if there was woman priests in the Bible, and this is going to be found, I believe there's some in the Old Testament and then also some in the New Testament. But the fact of the matter is that if God's going to use a woman to be a priest, which is essentially what we would consider today as a preacher or a guider, right? That's what the priest was someone that guided and was the shepherd, if you will, over the people. Then I don't think that God would ever change that, right? God has a pattern, He follows a pattern. And so when you look at that, you have to look at it from that point of view as well. So one of the things that people will say is they will talk about how in Timothy, Paul is also talking, and he says that he doesn't want other women to teach or have authority over men, and that they are supposed to keep silent and supposed to be under the man, right? And he goes through all these different things that women are supposed to do. But you also have to realize that I'm still using that. That a woman can be the leader over the church and not be over the man, okay? Because what he's talking about there is, having more authority, right? And
So are you saying that if a woman was a preacher or a bishop or something like that,
not a bishop.
why can't they be bishops?
I just explained that. A bishop is a man. We'll go to that.
Okay,
We'll
so
go to that.
superintendent.
Okay.
So I don't
If they
think-
were a superintendent, then people had to respect her husband's word more than her word.
That's not what I'm saying. So what I'm saying is people take that and they project that as women aren't allowed to be preachers, aren't allowed to be ministers, because they see that that's more authority. That's what they perceive. But you're talking about a marriage thing, you're talking about a relationship thing, and then you're talking about a church thing. In the home, the man can still be the husband, still be over the wife. And if you want, we can talk about that. We can go into that, why that is. And then at church, if God, here's the thing. God's rule and his layout is for typically men to be priests and to be ministers. Okay, we've seen that throughout the Bible, that God is almost always called men. There are examples that I'm trying to find here, and it's hard to talk and type out and all this stuff. At the same time. But the reason why for that, why I would say today that women are still able to be priests and ministers, is because men are failing in society. There's less and less men willing to step up, willing to answer that call. Okay? And so God, we see all over, we see throughout the Bible, God does not always just use this person, right? He doesn't just use the Jewish male. He doesn't just use, the Levite, right? The priesthood. He doesn't just use those people, because a lot of times he has to go out and he has to find someone else that's willing, right? You look at he used a pagan king to free the Jewish people out of bondage from. He used Cyrus the Great to free the Jewish people out of bondage, right, from Babylon. So when you look at that right there, you have to take into account and realize, well, God, didn't have anybody to use at that moment. I'm sure he could have, but he used who was willing and who was necessary. God is going to use a willing. Obedience is better than sacrifice, right? That's the scripture in the Bible. And the way I want to apply that, or our thinking by using that, is God is willing to use someone who is obedient, willing, than someone who is someone that's sacrificing or doing what they think is right, or because there's people that do all that they think that they're supposed to do, but aren't doing what they're called to do, if that makes sense. Right? There's plenty of people in the church, they're called to do something, but they want to just keep on doing what they've been doing. They don't want to answer that call. Our bishop was one of those people. He knew he was called to preach from a very, very young age, and he ran away from it and acted a fool. Jonah, he ran away from his calling and what he was supposed to do. Now, Jonah and Bishop both eventually went back. But if you do some studying in Jonah, Jonah wasn't happy with it. Jonah was mad. There's a good little study on Jonah for y'all to do about him.
Here's another question. Why do you have to be married to be a bishop or a superintendent?
That is a good question that I don't have the answer to. And so that's where superintendent is a new word, if you will. A new, where I do not believe it's found in the Bible. It's a new position, if you will. And so that's a question I don't have the answer for. We can do some studying real quick after we answer some of these other questions, because we got multiple different things I'm hoping I can answer all of them. But let's go here and see. Right now, I'm having trouble because there's not a lot of. I got it, but there's not a lot of
Information.
right, because this is not a very talked about subject. But the idea that women can be preachers, I don't believe that's found. There's even in the archives, there's women preachers that are recorded. There's women preachers in that Hall of Fame in Joplin in the archive.
What are you doing?
What are you doing, Nevaeh?
But can like preachers let so if a girl wants like if a woman wants to like preach and the preacher just let her?
I'm sorry.
Can if a woman wants to preach about something and a preacher won't let her do it, is that like against something? Like a rule?
I'm sorry. One more time. I apologize.
Think. Open your mouth.
When
Okay.
if a woman wants to preach, but a preacher won't let her.
Mhm.
If a
So-
woman wants to preach, but the preacher won't let her.
So that's where I would say that that's up to the pastor, right? I'm assuming that's what you mean. Is the pastor won't let her?
Here's a better phrased
Mhm.
question. What if God is sending that woman to preach, and then the
Mhm.
preacher says no?
That
Well, then that preacher would be, or that pastor would, because again, a preacher, I don't believe would be able to stop that. But if it was
Okay,
a pastor, that's why I want to make sure that we get in the actual, we're getting the words right, so we don't cause a bunch of confusion. But the pastor would be in trouble with God then, if the woman is called to preach, or so. We have been in this church, and we have had people that are. That have been called to Sister Williams. She's been called to the missionary field, right? So, and that was by a prophet who has prophesied things. He's been here and he's prophesied things and they've come to pass, right? And so when you look at stuff like that, then it's very apparent, right? And we look through society today where women have stepped up and have become preachers. We have women who teach. That's a part of the ministry right there. Sunday school teaching, that's part of the ministry. There's evangelists that are women, that's a part of the ministry, right? And so the idea that women aren't allowed to be preachers, it also gets down to what you want to call a preacher.
Okay, a pastor, someone who like owns a church, like Dad
Mhm.
does. Like, could a woman be in the same position that Bishop is in right now?
As
Like,
a
not the
pastor.
exact same, you know.
Mhm.
I mean, like, same position as Bishop.
rule. A woman can a woman start their own church?
Yeah, that's another
Mhm.
question. Yeah.
I mean, they can. I mean, I'm sure that they're allowed to do that.
Well, then that would follow along with being a pastor, right? A
Mhm.
pastor is someone who's over the church. And so the answer to that question would be found is whether or not women can be pastors. I don't know what's going on with this, because I have found these scriptures before, and now I'm kicking myself because, okay, right here maybe. So let's look at here. Let's go to Acts 2. Sorry, not Acts 2. Acts 13. Big difference. It says Acts 13 and 20. We read here, and after that he gave unto them judges about the space of 450 until Samuel the prophet. And afterward they desired a king, and God gave them Saul, king, a son of Size, a man of the tribe of Benjamin, by the space of 40 years. But where does it talk about? this is another problem. They say that this is where it was founded, and it wasn't. Really?
You okay?
Really?
Are you children on your saliva? Just like last time?
You said what?
Oh yeah.
One Thursday, I just kept joking constantly.
Dude,
And it didn't help that we just kept laughing after
Yeah,
you
guys
started
weren't-
choking.
You and Abby were not helping at all.
It's because it was funny because you just you were just talking all of a sudden and then just out of nowhere you just so of course we were laughing and then I spit my soda everywhere. So
That wasn't your fault. That wasn't your
This can happen. You laugh.
okay, so also
Mhm.
here's another question. So for women's roles in the church or whatever, roles in marriage, I guess, you said that they have to be quiet and what was it? Was it just quiet or what'd you say? What'd you say?
So I was quoting Timothy, and Paul was saying that they are essentially the cusp of it, rather, the overarching idea was that women are supposed to be silent, quiet, kind of, in the background, right? And so the reason for his view on this, and the reason for the overarching view of man, woman, or man over woman over child, right? Because that's how it goes. It goes God, man, woman, child. Or if you want to get even more technical, God, priest, preacher, pastor, person that's over the people, then man, then woman, then child. And then you have to take notice that child meaning anybody, any child. That there's no boy child is more than the girl child or vice versa. So the reason for that, one of the main reasons is, and I actually have the answer for this right here because I was just reading about this. In Genesis here, so number one, in chapter 2, verse 21, and the Lord caused a great sleep to fall upon Adam, and he slept and took one of the ribs as he closed to the flesh instead thereof. And the rib which the Lord God had taken from the man, he made a woman, and brought her unto the man. And Adam said, This is now the bone of my bones and the flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they shall be one flesh. And they were both naked, and the man and his wife were not ashamed. All right. So here, and then if you go on to verse 20, which is the verse right before the one I started reading, it says, Adam gave names to the cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But Adam, there was not found an help meet for him. So there was nobody for him. There was no one for him, right? So at that point, man and woman, it says here, there's no real indication that there's any difference, right? He says that there will be one flesh and that they're together. And notice, God didn't take it out of a bone out of his leg or out of his arm or out of his head.
Out of his rib, which is next to his. Oh wait, no.
It's
right.
to his side, protecting his heart, to his side. Right. A rib
You're
rib,
pointing right here, but your heart is up here.
No, a rib is right here.
Yeah, but your heart is up here.
Yes, right here.
Oh wait, is
there you
that
go.
how?
Take basic biology, you'll learn that.
I want to learn basic biology, but they
So-
won't let middle schoolers take that class.
so
Thank you very much.
He takes out the side, right?
Takes out the side, yeah.
They're not lower, right? And this is I'm speaking kind of metaphorically. This is not, doctrine, but I'm trying to make a point here. He didn't take a bone out of his leg. It wasn't lower. He didn't take one out of his arm or out of his head. She wasn't higher out of the side. They were the same. They were one flesh. They were, equal at that point. But then you go down, and it says here And the eyes of them were both open, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. So this is after they ate the fruit. This is right after they ate the fruit, right? And so God finds out. He goes to the serpent. He says, and the Lord God said unto the serpent, because thou hast done this, thou art cursed above all cattle and above every beast of the field. Upon the belly, thy belly shalt thou go, and the dust shalt thou eat all the days of thy life. And I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed. It shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt fall and bruise his heel. All right, so that's the curse upon the serpent. And then he goes down to verse 16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply thy sorrow and thy conception. So I'm going to make birth hard. I'm going to make it pain bad.
That's why we have periods.
That's not
What?
number one. And number two, that's different. I would say that's different than what he's talking about here.
Conception.
Right. Conception is...
Yeah,
two
it made
people.
it more difficult. Do you think if that didn't happen, then the woman wouldn't have suffered?
I have no clue. We would have to live in an alternate universe where the woman didn't eat the fruit, where the man didn't let the woman eat the fruit. Because again,
Where nobody ate the fruit. How about that? Nobody ate the fruit.
because we have this idea again. I want to make it very clear that the Bible is not some misogynistic thing, right? It's not a bunch of hate breeding against women. We would not be in this place if the man would have done his job and protect the woman in the first place. Protect his health. Protect his sake. Protect his partner. Right? We have this misconstrued idea that it was the woman and Paul, right? Paul, I'm not saying that Paul was wrong, but this is part of Paul's reasoning for writing the things that he wrote, and me personally, the reason why I believe he was so harsh, right? So that's me personally why I think that is because because the woman ate the fruit. Yes, the woman shouldn't have done that. That's on the woman, right? That was on Eve for doing that. She shouldn't have done it. God said no, and she would have known that. They were with God. They communed with God. They were together. But when it comes to the end of the day, who does Bishop? When Bishop teaches on who should take the responsibility, who does he teach?
Men.
The man of the household. And we are still at the same state that we were back in the garden, where men are the ones at fault. It goes back to what I was saying earlier. God chooses and uses women, not necessarily because that is the pattern that was originally followed, not because necessarily that is what God wanted to do, but God is going to use who's willing rather than who is who he should. Not should. That's the wrong word. Than who he would typically use, I would say. And so it's the man's fault for allowing the woman to do that. The man should have been there to protect and to stop and to say, no, we're not doing this. Because if you read, it says here, and the woman saw that the tree was good for food, and that it was pleasant unto the eyes, and the tree was desired to make one wise. She took the fruit, so she grabbed it. Now, God said, as soon as you touch the fruit, you shall surely die. So she grabs the fruit, okay, and did eat. She took a bite out of it, swallowed it, digested it. Well, digestion begins as soon as you swallow it, but you get my point. And then gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat.
So
The husband's standing right there. He's next to her. Maybe he was 10 feet. Maybe he was right next to her. Maybe he was 20 feet.
Was
But
he
he
watching her do this? Just like, hey, Adam, come watch this. And he just
I don't know. I mean, that's something that Bishop has
just
said.
staring there.
That's something that Bishop has said. He said, how mad you have to be at your wife to watch, to watch her grab something that you know is going to kill her, take a bite out of it, and then be like, okay, well, she didn't die, so let me eat some.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know how much I agree with that, because it doesn't necessarily say that, but I'm not saying that he's wrong either, because it doesn't say that it doesn't not say that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so, maybe Adam was mad. Maybe they had a.
I don't.
But you get my point.
Mm-hmm.
The point is that's another. The point is that Adam willingly let her do that, and then took part of it after. If anything, he should have said, okay, hold on. If this serpent is telling the truth, then let me try it out first. He should have been the first one to do it. Okay, so we have this, and again, it's continued all the way till now, and I'll get to you in a second, where men still are the ones that are at fault. You look at all the problems are with these children, and you look at all these. There's a significant more amount of women that are raising children by themselves than men. There are men that are raising children by themselves. We live next door to two men who were both straight guys, but they were living together because they couldn't afford to live by themselves and raising their children by themselves, right? So they were working together as friends to help each other out. So we do know that happens, but it's not in the majority, right? And what were you saying, Junior?
They died together. Adam and Eve.
You said what?
Adam and Eve died together.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they died together, and they died again because the man allowed that to happen. So let's continue on here in verse 16.
There wasn't anybody else on earth when that happened.
Well, hold on.
How would she cheat?
You can't think about this. I got this now.
Okay.
So when Adam and Eve had a baby,
Yes.
and it kept going on and on. Are all the people brothers and sisters?
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
We're all technically related because we all stem from Adam and Eve. We all stem from
Right.
Noah and his wife.
Yeah. So we all stem from Adam and Eve. That right there we know.
Yeah.
Okay. Now Noah, his wife, and then there was 6 others
Yeah.
because of his 3 sons and then their wives. So we could also come from them. Absolutely.
Which still come from
Right,
Noah.
which still comes from Adam and Eve.
And Adam and Eve, yeah.
Right. And so yes, we are all related. And even if you don't want to even look at a biblical sense, scientifically it's been proven that if you go 7 generations, I believe, back in DNA, we all have this a same ancestor. So it doesn't matter which perspective you want to look at that from. Atheists, doesn't matter. We're all still brothers and sisters.
And also,
But it's so
yeah.
widespread. It's not really brothers and sisters anymore.
Yeah. We're not brothers and sisters.
Right.
If anything,
We
we're
are
just like cousins 300 times removed, you know?
Yeah, sure.
And then also, the
So-
reason why like people were able to do that in Adam and Eve days, because incest is a sin, but back then,
Do you have Bible for that?
can you look it up? I'm not.
'Cause I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't think.
I'm not condoning incest, but I'm not positive
No,
if that's true.
okay, but it is. It's when you're, but you're. Sorry, I don't have a verse, right? But I remember that, for instance, if you do have children with someone that close in your family tree, then it can cause physical or mental deformities for the child,
Right.
which is harming the next generation of the bloodline.
Okay, but so here's my thing with that. And again, I'm not condoning incest because I don't believe there ain't no reason for anybody to be marrying their cousins. Okay, there's close, if not 8 billion people on this world right now. You can find someone else other than your cousin or your brother.
There's more fish in the tree than there is in the. There's more fish in the sea than there are in the family tree.
That's good. I like that. That's definitely it. And so, here's my thing with that. Genetic deformities and mental stuff can also just happen randomly. So, by that logic, it's a sin because you're harming those people. Number one, it's not 100% because there's still people that come out perfectly fine from 2 parents.
But
that are
after
related.
a certain few generations,
Mhm.
then
It becomes more and more.
Yeah. And my thing, because when you have a child with anybody, then that's a chance that you're gonna have to take. But when you have a child with someone that you know will cause problems for your child,
Mhm.
then that's when it starts becoming
Yeah, I could tell you could argue that you're premeditating.
exactly.
It's premeditative.
Because
and the
even if
fact
they
that you
come
know-
out fine, then you
Mhm.
still had that thought in your brain that,
Right.
oh, I'm doing something that could harm my child, but I'm still going to do it
Yeah.
anyways.
I mean, I think it depends how you look at it. I don't think there's any scriptures, and if there is, then if you want to go look that up, you can. To me, I don't want to date anybody that's related to me. I don't really want to. If you're listening on the podcast and you really want to date someone that's related to you can go ahead and search out those scriptures and find out if that's right or wrong. But
just go to a coffee shop. Why do you need to go to the family reunion?
Yeah, I'm not worried about it. That's my stance on that. So let's get back on track here and answer that question about the man and woman and why. So continue on in verse 16. It says, "And thy desire shall be to thy husband, and he shall rule over thee." And that's it. So that's his. And then it talks to Adam. And unto Adam he said, "Because thou hast hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, because you listened to her, and allowed and just did what she said, instead of taking the responsibility and saying, no, we're not going to eat this fruit." He said, "And thou hast eaten of the tree which I commanded thee, saying, Thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake. In sorrow shalt thou eat of it, and all the days of thy life." So, for him, he's gonna have a hard time growing stuff. He's not gonna be able to live forever, and that's for both of them, right? But anyways, you get my point. So, now the woman definitely probably, I would say, suffered a little bit more, but she also went and did the sin, right? First, allowed sin to enter in first.
Which
So
again,
that
the guy
is
was just like watching and not doing anything,
Mhm.
but still.
But that's still where free will was on both of them.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? And so the act itself of the sin was committed by the woman, and so because of that, she got the punishment. Eve got the punishment.
So
or got
my only, because I understand that, but that was. But how long is a millennia?
That's like 1,000 years. A millennium is like 1,000 years.
It was like
I believe, is like
2, 3, 4, 5, 6 millenniums ago. A long time ago.
Mhm.
Let's just say that because I can't say the exact date.
Mhm.
It was a very long time ago, and so I don't feel like, because I know that the Bible isn't spreading sexism or whatever, but it sounds like you're trying, not you, I mean, it sounds like what it's saying is that the man is the only one who's allowed to make decisions. The woman should only listen to the man, and that's that.
Why can't the woman
And
make decisions?
That's what I'm trying to say. Why should we suffer for an action done from our ancestors long time ago, when, like, if a woman has a good perspective, has a good point of view, has like an idea, why should we like have to keep quiet because our husbands don't agree with that idea? I don't think that's necessarily fair.
So are you saying?
So that's
husband
where
and-
we're going into what I feel and what I think. And again, I said this, and that's why I always try to be clear that when I give my opinion, I want to make it clear that it's my opinion, because my opinion is not doctrine. My opinion is not the Bible. My opinion is not the truth. Right? It doesn't matter what I say. It doesn't matter what Bishop says. If it's not backed by the Bible, then it's not. But here's the deal, and here's the facts of the matter. If God said that this is a suitable punishment and that this is it, then that is where the plain answer is, that's right. When we try to go, it's like the idea that you have someone who's working on this piece of equipment, right? They're working on this painting, and somehow by some magic, force, the painting comes to life, and it says, what you did right here on this spot was wrong. How is the painting going to go? How is the painting going to say to the painter who knows what he's doing? He put that spot there on purpose. How are we as the creation supposed to say you're wrong for doing that? When by that logic, by your logic that was so long ago, well then we shouldn't have to worry about sin because it was so long ago, because sin happened. That was ages ago when sin was brought
Here's the thing
to the
about
world.
that.
Mhm.
People are still doing sin.
Right.
Even because after the apple, right?
Mm-hmm.
People still kept doing the thing that
Right.
God did not want you
Right.
to do. But the apple was eaten a long time ago.
Right.
and nobody has eaten of that fruit since nobody can even go to eat that fruit.
So
Like,
let me say this.
or not apple. I keep saying apple. I'm sorry. It's
Right.
a fruit. It's
So-
not.
So how about this? If I smoke cigarettes right now for 3 years, okay? Let's just say for 3 years, and I get lung cancer. All right. Down the line, I stopped smoking. I stopped smoking after those 3 years, and I'm now 114 somehow. And then the lung cancer kills me. With that argument in mind, well, I stopped doing that a long time ago. I only did that, that back then. But our actions have consequences.
But that wasn't our actions. That was Eve's actions.
Right, which is befallen mankind. They brought the sin into the world. They brought that curse. They brought the mortality of. By your same logic, they eat the apple. Why should we not be immortal? It's because they had free will, and they freely chose to do that, knowing the ramifications, knowing that it would be bad for them, knowing that they would suffer, knowing that they were going against God, who they knew brought the entire world. They knew He was just. They knew He was holy. They knew He was the supreme. They knew He was sovereign, and they still chose to go against that. And for us to try to argue or try to say that our idea of what's right and wrong supersedes what God says.
Well, here's another question. What if? Okay, so God says, like, fights for equality, right? Or not fights for equality, but He, like, how do I put this?
Yeah, because I don't know where you're going with this.
Come on. So, God does not like people to find themselves better than other people, right?
He's no respecter of persons. That's correct.
Yeah. And so that's the same for, like, racism. He doesn't
Right.
support racism.
I would agree with that.
That is equality, right? Well, in a sense. Okay, and then also, for instance, if a man was just going around saying, hey, I'm better than women, all men are better than women, and that's literally it, and that was their entire point of view, then would you say that God supports that?
Supports them, like, saying that?
Yeah.
Well, those people would be wrong. Because what you're saying, okay, so what you're mistaking, or maybe not mistaking, what you're viewing the curse that was placed on the woman for committing the first sin, okay? And then because of that, there were ramifications. She was punished, and because of that, her line, or her side, the women would suffer that because of her, right? Just as rest of mankind suffered because of the fall of Adam, because he allowed it to happen, right? So, number one, that's what I want you to realize that you're viewing just the woman's punishment and not overarching man.
I'm viewing the man's punishment as well, but the man's punishment is that he gets to rule over women.
No, it's not.
Why can't?
Well, no,
That's not.
it's not his punishment. Sorry.
Right.
The woman's punishment is that the man gets to rule over the woman, but the man also did bad things, so why
Right.
should he be able to rule over the woman?
Because number one, she did it first.
But
She's the
she
one-
also took a bite, and
Mhm.
he did not stop her from taking the bite, which
Right.
in itself is, I don't
It's-
want to say it's a sin.
It's free will, because again, it's free will. She chose to do it herself. Yes,
But aren't you
yes,
supposed to stand up for,
yes,
like,
I believe that it was the man's responsibility to do that, but there was nothing requiring him by law or by whatever to do that. The only sin that could be committed at that time, the only sin that they could do, everything else was fair game. They could do whatever they want, do whatever they want, but the one thing that God said at this time. So this is also where you kind of get into dispensationalism or dispensations, and you can study that as well. That's something I studied a few weeks, like 2 weeks ago or last week. In the dispensations, God has a certain amount of rules, a certain amount of covenant, right? That means a certain amount of thing. At this time, there was only one law, only one rule, and that rule was no touchy fruit. No touchy fruit. Right?
So
And
the
so-
man wasn't in the wrong for doing that.
Right. I believe personally that the man probably should have said, "Hey, hold up." But that's where you have to.
Listen.
That's where you have to realize it's not that the woman wouldn't listen or anything. It's that both have free will, and so it was her choice to do it. Yes, I personally do believe that the man should have said, "Hey, stop," but at the same time, it was still the woman's choice,
And it was the man's choice not to tell her not to do it.
right? But we have to make choices for ourselves at some point. And so that's my point, is that when free will is in the thing, and is in the concept, or is in the, what's it called, equation, then it falls on the woman because she committed the first sin. That was the point. It wasn't that she did it was the fact that she is the one that initiated it, and she's the one that did it first. That was why. I believe that if the man did it first, then he would have received something very equal. And we have to realize that, again, God's ethics maybe is different than ours, because He is a full supreme justice, right? When sin tainted our world and our flesh and our view, it tainted everything. We have people right now that think it's okay going around killing babies. We have people think it's all right sleeping with the same sex. We have people thinking it's all right to do all these bad drugs and doing all these different things. So our idea of what's right and wrong needs to be based off of what says is right and wrong in here, and not what we feel or think. And I'm not trying to get on to you or anything. But that's why. And so I'm not saying that, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say here, to answer your question on that, is that God saw it good that was a continuation, right? And it's not just woman that He did that for, because you see if you read through some of the different books of the early Bible, you read how one man's mistake, or let's say the father did something bad, it would follow the children, right? And so you're right, it was on the children, but the point is that our ramifications, our actions have ramifications in the future, is what I'm trying to say, I think, right? It's still a thing today. If you become a drug addict and you have 14 kids, and all those kids are stuck, whacked out because they didn't have a good parent, and they're all starving, and they're all not smart because they weren't able to go to school. It's not the kid's fault, but it's because the parent in charge decided that their idea, what they thought was right, what they wanted to do, was more important, and so because it has negative effects on the rest of them.
So are you saying that we, as children of Eve, or
children of Eve.
Grandchildren.
You could say that. Yeah.
Children of Eve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you saying that we deserve, like women at least, to have a man rule over us?
That's not what I said. I said that because of Eve's sin, that those ramifications are what's applied to the rest of women. Right? And so again, I don't think it's as extreme as it used to be. I don't think it should be as extreme as it used to be. It used to be that if we have this conversation, women would be beaten. That's reality. There's still countries that take it a lot more seriously. That when, women step out of line, quote unquote, then, and I'm not trying to say that we're so much better, or that you should feel lucky because we're able to have this conversation.
To be
but
fair,
I'm trying to make this point that
America is one of the best countries to be in, considering how, pretty much everything is accepted here.
Yeah.
And so,
What's to look for? What's to look for, Nevaeh?
But Jimmy,
You not agree with that?
What's to look for?
No, because I get told by so many people it's like the worst place to be.
Well, absolutely
Well,
you do.
then,
Because we're living in a society. This is what we were just talking about. We're living in a society where right is wrong and wrong is right.
And also,
When you look, so a lot of that stuff is political stuff that people have been taught as a young child. And when you believe that, my country's horrible, then, or you've been told that, then yeah, you're going to believe that. But the fact of the matter is, this is the freest country. You can practice any religion here. You can say anything you want here. You can do just about anything you want here.
and then
And
also
you
think
go
about
to other countries that are more modernized. Go to Canada, right above us. You can't say certain things without going to jail for years. You can't, practice, certain things without getting in trouble. You can't, I understand that. I'm not saying America's perfect, because we're not. But this is the best country to be in, especially as a Christian country or a Christian people. This is the best country to be in, to have free rights.
The
to be able
next
to
time
practice
one
our
of your
religion.
friends or like anybody who says that
But
tell them,
should man
hey,
not blend the woman? I mean, should they like cooperate?
Absolutely, they should cooperate. And so that's what I was saying, is that it's not as
they just
extreme.
interrupted me.
No, we're having our own
Okay.
conversation.
So
I don't
if
like
your
to blend the
friends
woman
say
every time.
that
Like, if she did something
this
wrong,
is the worst country to
it's
be in
really
or
me.
whatever, and this is just like a bad country,
And so that-
tell them if you were in any other
so what
country,
you're asking is
then you could probably
is
be
both
But no matter what,
saying that about your
cooperate.
country.
You said what?
But by no,
Because that's
no
true.
matter what,
If
they
you
should
go-
cooperate.
I think both parties should
Iraq does
absolutely
have very
cooperate.
strict
And that's what I was
rules.
talking about, is as we've gone along in
Either
society,
that or
women have gotten
China
more
probably.
freed up, if that makes sense.
If
I
you
believe
talk
it's
bad
definitely
about
true.
your government,
Women have
or
gotten more rights.
um,
We've seen that in this country. Women have gotten more
your
rights.
state or
We,
not state, but
And so
your country.
we're about to go in
Talk
here.
bad about
I
your
have
country or your
the answer to
government,
what the original
you could
question
go to
was.
prison.
I
I'm pretty
have
sure that's an act
Jeremy,
of treason to some extent.
I have an answer to the first question about can women be priests or
Okay.
preachers. So, with all of the stuff that's been said, okay, I want to make a few things clear with all this. I want to kind of summarize what we've said so far. So, number one, yes, the way God has ordered mankind to run is God, and then man, woman, child. Okay? Now, that's not to say that one is less than the other, but one has more rule or authority. There's got to be order to everything. And God said that that's what's first. God created man first, and then he created woman.
Because
Alright.
he needed a draft first to create the perfect image.
You know what? That itself is not a completely crazy argument. If
It's
some the book I'm reading right now that was written by Bishop Bernie Wade, who's a very, very, very intelligent guy. I mean, so smart. He talks about that, how when in reality, women are like the perfect specimen. They are the because so
They have a higher pain tolerance as well.
So real quick, we'll depart. We're going to pause what we're talking about, and I'm going to go into something else real quick. So we have this idea. That we have this idea that angels. I might still use that, but we have this idea that angels are better than humans, right? A lot of people still go with the concept that goes God, angels, man. When that's not true. If you read in reality and you really look into it,
Angels have no free will.
I wouldn't say that. I think that's a
that
topic is up.
Lucifer.
Yeah, that topic is up to theological debate, which I don't have the resources. That's one of the things I'm reading right now. That book that I'm reading is a part of that. So, but nonetheless, it's really God, man, angels. It says that God created man in his own image, right? We are the image of God. We are his favorite creation. God said that our creation is very good, right? In comparison to everything else, which is good. Ours is very good, right? When you look at that, and you look at the fact that we are able to do what we want, we were able to commune with God and have real conversations with him before the fall. You know what I'm saying? Mankind was with God. Adam and Eve were with God, right? Angels don't get the same privileges, okay? And so when you look at that, from that point of view, that mankind is the best creation that God has made, right? From original creation, because then the fall happened and now we're kind of goofed up. But so we're looking at that man, and then you have the woman. The woman is made, and she is just like the man. She's made in the image of God, but now she can bear fruit. She can give God grandchildren. She can give God, more people. She can be fruitful and multiply. She's able to do more. She's able to bear life. She's able to create just like God. Now, I'm not saying that women are God, but I'm saying women have even more qualities, more attributes. And so that's a little theological argument that you could say that isn't totally looked down upon. It's kind of in the discussion right now if you want to look at that way, where women, yeah, you could say men were the draft, and then the women were like the perfected version. Now that's sexist because women are better. You're saying women are better? No, because both go together. You need one to complete the other, right? And so it's the same thing with the hierarchy when it goes to the authority. You have men, women, children. Why is that? You have man who is who is the protector, the guarder. He was made first. He was the protector. He is to keep them safe. He is to instill what's right and wrong and lead the family into righteousness, lead the family to what's right. And then you have the woman who is supposed to, who's able to bring life, who's able to nourish and bring up the children the right way with the values that the man is supposed to teach by God, that has been given by God. So you see the kind of the ladder of authority that's being built. You have God that has the word. He has the what says what's right and wrong. The man is supposed to protect those values, protect the ideas, and then the woman is in turn supposed to teach the children that she's able to bear, able to bring up, and able to raise, and then is supposed to be able to make a home, be a help. That's what the
Can I try to make an analogy for this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, it's like a hen house, right? So, bear with me. So, the house, right, protects the hens and the eggs, right?
Right.
So, to make sure that no predators get in, which sometimes they do, but we're not talking about that.
Right, I get the point.
It's there to protect the hens. So that way the hens, in turn, can have, or can make more hens to later make more hens, blah, blah. And then the eggs themselves are the children who are fragile and can break easily if anything gets in.
And then God is the farmer who built the house and is allowing the food to come into existence. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good analogy. And so when we look at that, it's not that one is just greater than the other and that's it. It's that each individual thing has a purpose and has a point. Okay.
And also, as you said before, it's God, preacher, like bishop,
leader, church leader.
Men, women, children. So, men and women are both below the preacher. So whoever is appointed to be the preacher or pastor, whatever you want to call it, they are over.
Right, and so that's what I was talking about earlier, is that a woman, and actually you might have some information on this. You might have done some study, I'm sure, because you've been called to the ministry.
Okay.
But the woman can be the preacher and can be the pastor and still be under the authority of the husband, because they're two different things. You have the church, and I'm trying to make a point. There's the church, and then there's the home, right? And so while they're at church, they have the authority, yes, because they're delivering God's word. Their authority comes from God, right? So God supersedes, if you will, the original appointment, the original curse of the woman to be under the man. He supersedes that and says, because this woman is the only person I can find that is willing to preach the word, the only person that has any ability to do this. I'm allowing her to give my word, right? To speak forth, to speak to the people. I don't know why I'm standing, I just feel like standing, right? And then at home, the man can say, can you please help me with the dishes?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, yeah, so the man has authority over the house.
Right.
But he has no authority over the ministry.
Right,
Or
exactly.
He has no authority over the ministry.
Because if we were going in the view that if the man has the authority over the woman in the house and he has to have the authority at the church, well then any man in the church can just be a preacher. Any man in the church can just say whatever he wants. But there is a specification, and so it could. That's why I say God, preacher, and then man, woman, child.
The main reason, I brought up this topic.
So, and I finally have scripture real quick. Let's read that real quick. Let's read that real quick because I finally have found it. And this wasn't even there's. It talks about. Ashley, do you know where it talks? Sister Williams, do you know where it talks about in the New Testament about the woman priestess?
No, I don't, but I can look it up.
I was about to say
Yeah, if you
Esther,
can
but
find
she
it,
was just a queen.
I believe it's in Luke or John. I think it's in Luke. But we're in the Old Testament, all right? So let's get this straight. The New Testament is a lot freer, a lot more. It's a lot grace. That's it. We're under grace. We're no longer under law. We're under grace, right? And so there's a lot freer things, right? And so if in the Old Testament, here's my argument, right? Or here's how I kind of want us to look at it. If God is going to allow women to be preachers and ministers of the word and deliver God's word in the Old Testament, then why wouldn't He allow it in the New Testament? That's my thought process until we find the New Testament stuff. Okay, so that's what I'm going to go with here. Verse 14. So Hilkiah the priest and Alkim and Akbar and this is in 2 Kings verse 22 or chapter 22 verse 14 that I'm reading from, and Shaphan and Isaiah went unto Huldah the prophetess, not prophet, prophetess, the wife of, so she's a woman, wife of Shallum, the son of Tikvah, the son of Harash, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she dwelt in Jerusalem in the college, and they communed with her. And she said unto them, Thus saith the Lord God of Israel, Tell the man that sent you to me, This is the Lord, behold, I will bring evil upon this place and upon the inhabitants thereof, and all the words of the book which are in the king of Judah hath read, because they have forsaken me and have burned incense to other gods, and they have, so it goes on and on, right? But this is a woman doing the exact same thing that we read countless times. I mean, that right there, the reason why I stopped is because we've read that before in other scriptures. You've forsaken other gods. You've burnt incense to other gods. You've forsaken me and gone for other gods. You know what I'm saying? We've read that countless times in the Bible by countless different men. So it's the same message, but being said by a woman, right? And then 2 Chronicles verse 34, or chapter 34 rather, verse 22, and Hilkiah and that the king had appointed went to Huldah the prophetess of the wife of Shillum, and then it goes on, and it talks about the exact same thing that we just read in 1 Kings. Now these are two different sources. Both recordings of history, but they're from two different things. So we now have two accounts of a prophetess existing, right? There's more to this. Ashley, have you been able to find anything yet?
No, I looked up on Google and it said talked about Mary becoming the first preacher.
Wait, which Mary?
There's
like 5.
Mary and her. This is Mary and her cousin Elizabeth. But I don't know. It gave me Luke 1.
Luke 1.
Yeah. But that may be wrong.
Yeah, so I was reading something earlier and it was talking about another woman preacher, but whatever. But there's a lot of it that's not in there.
Yeah.
That's why I was having such a hard time. There's so many different resources that are like, oh yeah, this person was in there, and then they like cite,
And then you look at it and you're like,
that's not at all what it says. Yeah. And so that's why I want to actually go to the Bible instead of just going off the web, because the web is not always.
Well, I was looking at it through the Bible app, and it's not giving me anything specific either.
Well, I think do you have the one where if you search up a word, then
Mine does not have that.
okay.
Yours does?
Hers doesn't. No.
Oh.
So do you have one that does that, Ashley?
Well, I downloaded Bible Gateway, so maybe Bible Gateway does that.
Yeah, Gateway I think might. Search up prophetess maybe.
I think I found it.
I see.
So like read down here, like you continue to say something like Elizabeth.
Were you thinking of Luke 2:36 of Anna?
Let me read here. 2:36. And there was one Anna, a prophetess, daughter. Yep, this is it. Daughter of Phanuel in the tribe of Azer. She was of great age and had lived with the husband. Thank you, Junior. 7 years from her virginity, and she was a widow. Right. So it goes on and talks about her, which departed not from the temple, but served God with fasting, with prayers and night. So this right there, that's the key. That's why God used her. She was committed. She served God with fasting and prayers day and night. She comes in with the instant of giving thanks, likewise to the Lord, and spake unto him to all them that looked for redemption into Jerusalem. Right? And so when you look at stuff like that, there's not a doubt in my mind. And then we read in, if you could, actually try to find also, Paul writes a letter to one of the churches, but it's to the woman leader. I can't think of it. I can't remember it, but I believe, but it is in there. If you could find that as well, that'd be really helpful. And we're going to go back to Romans. I want to dissect that again, because that's also, we read that. Again, it doesn't explicitly say that she was the pastor, right? But it says here in 16, I commend unto you, Phoebe, thank you. Phoebe, our sister, which is a servant of the church, which is at Centria, that you receive her in the Lord as becometh saints, and that you assist her in whatsoever business she hath need of you. For she hath been a securer of many, and of myself also. You know, she's someone that has importance, you know what I'm saying? And if Ashley can find that scripture for us, that would be great. I know it exists. People on the podcast, if you are not satisfied with what I found so far and what we've been talking about in the Bible, what we've been talking about, you can search out the scriptures yourselves, because I know it's in there. I'm having trouble finding it. Because we're in this day and age where people believe that it's not allowed, and so when you look up, woman preacher in the New Testament, all that pops up is why women can't be preachers in the New Testament, and their main source is Paul, but Paul's the one that writes to this person.
Do you know the name
Of what?
who Paul writes to?
I can't. That's what I'm saying. I can't remember.
He's a woman, right?
I believe so. Yeah. Well, yes. Yeah, it was a woman.
Anyways, so the reason I thought about this topic was because there's there's this couple who, on a certain platform which you could watch people and their lives and stuff like that, and they were Christians, and they were talking about how you can't be a preacher if you're a woman. And then they were bringing up but if you're called to preach, then I may let you preach, but I'm gonna question it. If it's a guy, I'm not gonna question it, but if it's a woman,
But why shouldn't they question?
I would say that God should reveal unto the pastor, that God would reveal unto the pastor's really seeking him for the answer. He would reveal whether or not that calling, if it's that person. Bishops talked about that. If you have a calling, you believe you have a calling, to go to him and ask him. Well, to pray about it first, make sure that you really feel like you have a calling, then go to him and ask him if you're... But, I mean, we have people in this church that are called to the ministry that are women, right? And so, I don't think that there's... Again, a lot of the scriptures that they use are from Timothy, but I think it doesn't. not I think. It doesn't, you know,
Do you think
it's not a full encompassing, like, what is it?
Do you think he's like in there?
It's not a, this is it. You know what I'm saying? Like for here, he says, so this is what I was talking about earlier about the bishop. In chapter 3, he says, 1 Timothy, this is a true saying of a man desired to, in the office of a bishop, he desireth a good work. A bishop must be blameless, the husband of one wife, vigilant, sober, good behavior, given to hospitality, adapted to teach, not given to wine, nor a striker, nor greedy of filthy liquor. So that's to the bishop. You know what I'm saying? That's not to a pastor. And then where here does it talk about women? Well, what did I say it was? It was like 2 Timothy. Perfect. Bishop's here. Perfect. So can a woman be a pastor?
Yes, absolutely.
We just went through like an hour.
Well, yes. I knew he was going to say that, and I knew the answer was yes, but I'm trying to find biblical stuff. And
Okay.
so here's what I've said.
Let me give it to you.
Here's what I've said is
Should go up there.
I know that there is one scripture or one book where Paul's writing to one of the leaders of the congregation.
Out here.
Who's a woman. But I was going back to the Old Testament where there are multiple accounts of
Deborah
prophetesses,
was a judge,
right?
which was unheard of.
And then there was what was it, Hagar, something like that. She was a prophetess. It was in.
It was like Hadana or Hagana or something.
Yeah, it was
like
here. Her name was Huldah. Sorry, Huldah
Huldah.
prophetess.
Oh God.
Yeah.
Huldah the prophetess, right? And so here's my line of thinking. If God is going to allow a prophetess or someone to be a minister of his word back in the Old Testament and allow that to be a woman, why would he change it in the New Testament? But what would he have to say? Because I know there's more in there, but
So we got the answer after what, an hour and 12 minutes.
well, I gave you all the answer at the beginning. I
Perfect.
just wanted to break it down.
A perfect.
We
You
got
didn't
that.
really give me the answer. You were like talking about it and being like, well, I'm not sure about this. I'm not sure about this. My opinion. Which doesn't mean anything if it's not in the Bible.
Because my opinion doesn't mean anything
All right.
if it's not in the Bible.
So you didn't give me my answer technically until like later on. So technically,
It's 2 John chapter 1,
2 John chapter 1,
verse 1.
verse 1.
Chapter 1, verse 1.
Wasn't
The
that-
elder unto the elect lady, there we go, and her children, whom I love in the truth, and not I only, but also all they that have known the truth. For the truth's sake, which which dwell in us, and shall be with us forever.
So what did it say at the very beginning?
It said, the elder unto the elect lady.
That's the Apostle John,
Yep,
and he's dealing with the elect lady.
right,
He ain't talking to a preacher, he's talking to the elect lady, which is over the church.
right,
He's telling her, the elect lady and her children. He's not talking about her natural children, he's talking about the saints.
right, the saints, right,
Whom I love in the truth, and not I only, but also they that have known the truth.
right.
That's what lets you know it's not her natural children, it's about in the truth.
Right. And so here's another just final question. A woman preacher, the preacher, the pastor can still be the pastor, and her husband can still have authority over her at the home.
Yeah, because that's the law.
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
yeah.
Well, that's what I was
A
talking about.
woman can never be over a man.
Right.
She can have the pastorate,
Right.
and she can have the pastorate and be watching for their souls.
Right.
Because she may give that
Authority. Right.
authority. But she can but she could never rule over her pastor.
Never rule over. Right. Exactly.
So we know Sister Andrews and Sister
Absolutely.
Pastor Petit, all of those are pastors, and their husbands are elders. So they call her pastor, but he's elder.
Right.
So he has authority, but that authority is relinquished to her because she has the calling, not him.
Right. Exactly.
But yeah,
So-
she can't rule over.
Thank you for
She
confirming
could never
everything
be a
I've
bishop.
said. Right. And that's what I was talking about. She could not be a bishop.
Never be a bishop.
But a
Because the
superintendent.
Bible says that a
Has to be
bishop
a husband.
must be the husband of
One.
one wife.
Right.
So, and we don't do that. We don't do that transgender stuff. So.
Okay.
But so superintendent is the technical name for a female bishop or whatever.
It's not a bishop. It's a
I got a job for Brother Will.
But yeah, thank y'all for tuning in. I hope you all on the podcast were able to get something out of this, and I hope it was worth it listening for this hour and 15 minutes. Thank y'all. Please come back. We're going to continue in the Word, continue studying. The longer this podcast goes, the deeper we'll be able to get into it. Deeper we'll be able to get into the Word. And thank you for joining again. God bless.
Thank you for joining us again and tuning into our podcast. We hope you enjoyed this episode. If you want to find more lessons like these, you can visit our Facebook page, Apostolic Church of Jesus Christ. We are located at 614 North Franklin Avenue, Sand Springs, Oklahoma, if you would like to attend service. God bless.